Close your eyes for a moment and think, what if there was a structure that saved on your behalf every day, protected wealth, and calculated interest, and it was built 4,500 years ago? This isn't science fiction. In the next 10-15 minutes, you'll learn how massive wealth accumulation machines were created in an era when money didn't even exist, how the ancestors of modern banks were temple priests, and most importantly, how debt brought money into existence. Because just like a Mesopotamian farmer heading to the temple every morning in debt, you're indebted to the system too. You just don't realize it. So are you ready? Then let's witness one of history's greatest financial revolutions. Whether you're watching from Sydney, London, New York, or wherever, you probably have a few cards in your wallet, maybe some money sitting in a digital account. But here's the real question. Have you ever thought about where that money is actually held? On a server, in a vault? Or does it just exist as a number? Now, I'm going to tell you something shocking. The core logic of modern banking was built on a massive staircase in the middle of the desert 4,500 years ago. Yes, I'm talking about ziggurats. But these weren't just magnificent temples. They were the world's first centralized vault systems. In other words, they were like today's central banks. And the financial architecture they created was so powerful that we're still using the same principles today. For a moment, imagine yourself inside a modern data center. Just like in Hollywood movies, huge servers, security systems, redundant storage, access controls. Now take that concept back 4,500 years. A ziggurat was exactly that, a centralized storage and record-keeping system. But what they stored wasn't just barley, silver, or wool. What they really stored was trust, and that trust formed the economic backbone of the entire society. Do you remember the clay tablet accounting system we talked about in previous videos? Have you ever wondered where those tablets were physically stored? Here's the answer: in the most secure rooms of the ziggurats. Because those tablets weren't just debt records. They were society's memory, its justice system, its economic reality. Now let's get to the main point. How did these massive structures become financial fortresses? Let's mentally travel through the tunnel of time and take ourselves to 2100 BCE, to the city of Ur. Before your eyes, a colossal structure rises from the desert sands toward the sky. It's not a pyramid. It's tiered, stepped, a sacred mountain where gods were believed to reside. Its name, Ziggurat. But this wasn't just a temple. This was the world's first central bank. The Ur Ziggurat wasn't only for worship, it also functioned as the economic center of the entire city. What was inside the temple, you ask? Barley granaries, the city's food reserves. Silver depots, the metal used as a unit of value. Clay tablet archives, all the debt records. Priest scribes, the first accountants. Weighing stones, standardized measurement units. Imagine you've entered a bank vault. But this place doesn't just store money. It decides what money is, how valuable it is, who owes what to whom. And who's doing all this? Priests speaking on behalf of the gods. Here's a fact: financial power has always required authority and a sacred guarantee. Even the independence of modern central banks is a kind of sanctity, an unquestioned authority. Ziggurats were the first version of this system. In 2042 BCE, something extraordinary happened in a small town called Drehem. This town functioned like the animal sacrifice depot for the Ur Ziggurat. And thanks to the tens of thousands of clay tablets left to us today, we can track that era's financial system almost day by day. One of the tablets says, 3 lambs received from Lucala, for the god Nana of the Ziggurat, on the 4th day of the month, seal of Ishkur Ilum. This isn't just a record, it's like a blockchain entry, immutable, sealed, written in front of witnesses. And what we learn from this is, money wasn't widely used yet, but the debt system was more detailed than a modern bank's balance sheet. So, how did this system work? Let's think about a farmer's story. His name is Ur-Nammu. When spring comes, he needs seeds. He goes to the ziggurat. He tells the priest, "Give me 60 bushels of barley seed. At harvest, I'll bring back 75 bushels." The priest engraves this on a clay tablet. Ur-Nammu's seal, the priest's seal, and a witness's seal. Then the tablet is stored in the ziggurat's archive. When harvest time comes, Ur-Nammu brings 75 bushels of barley. The priest pulls out the old tablet and marks it debt paid, or breaks the tablet. But what if Ur-Nammu can't bring the harvest? Then the debt rolls over to the next year, and interest is added. Yes, you heard right. Interest existed before the invention of money. This is critical. Now, I'm going to show you one of the biggest misconceptions in the modern financial world. What we're taught is, banks take your money, lend it to others as credit, and the difference is interest. But that's not the true story. The reality is that when banks create credit, they actually create money. So when you take out a loan, that money isn't taken from someone else's account. It's created digitally, out of thin air. So, how did this work 4,000 years ago? Ziggurat priests did the same thing, but physically. Even if they had 1,000 bushels of barley on hand, they could lend out 3,000 bushels worth of credit. Why? Because the whole society trusted this debt, and the loans were repaid over time. This was a primitive form of fractional reserve banking. But there's another dimension, divine trust. If you were an ordinary farmer living in Ur, you couldn't challenge the Ziggurat's authority, because the debt wasn't just to the priest, it was to the god. Gods like Nana, Enlil, Inanna, they were all financial guarantors. If you didn't pay your debt, you weren't just fighting the temple, you were warring against the cosmic order. Now bring this to our modern world. Where does the authority of central banks to print money come from? From legal authority. And what guarantees that legal authority? The legitimacy of the state. So there's still a sacred authority, just with a different name. If you've watched this far, you must have realized by now, economic systems are always built on a trust architecture. Ziggurats were the physical manifestation of that architecture. But was everything revolving inside this structure, or were there cracks? Here's the anatomy of an economic crisis recorded in history. Now, let's take you to 1792 BCE, to Hammurabi's ascension to the throne. Yes, the king famous for his eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth laws. But one of his first acts wasn't a law, it was debt forgiveness. In Akkadian, it's called misharum, meaning decree to establish justice. Why? Because at that time, Mesopotamian society was facing a serious debt crisis. Farmers couldn't pay their accumulated debts due to bad harvest years, floods, and wars. What happened as a result? They lost their lands and became enslaved, and this was rotting the foundation of society. When Hammurabi ascended the throne, he declared, "All agricultural debts are cancelled. Slaves sold due to debt are freed. Except for commercial debts on temples and the wealthy, all obligations are annulled." Was this an act of compassion? Of course not. It was an economic survival strategy. If all farmers lost their lands, who would provide soldiers for the army? Who would pay taxes? Who would bring tribute to the ziggurats? The system would collapse. Think of a machine. Its pistons are farmers, its gears are merchants, its oil is debts. Now the oil has gotten too thick, and the pistons can't move. What do? Either scrap the whole machine or change the oil. Hammurabi changed the oil, not the system itself. Something similar happened in the 2008 mortgage crisis. Remember? Millions lost their homes, but the system was saved. How? By forgiving some debts and bailing out banks, but the system's logic never changed. Ziggurats created the first debt crises, and their solutions too. So far we've talked a lot about debt, but we haven't asked one question. What was debt measured in? Have you ever thought about it? Of course with silver. From the mid-3000s BCE onward, silver became the universal unit of value in Mesopotamia. But pay attention, silver wasn't money itself. Not everyone carried silver in their pockets. Silver was an abstract accounting unit. How? Think like this. Someone owes you. How much? 30 shekels of silver worth of barley. Pay attention to that phrase. Here, the debt is valued in silver terms, but payment could be made in barley. Why was this system important? Because now different goods could be compared. 10 bushels of wheat equaled 3 sheep, because both were valued in silver. And here's where a critical step was taken. Ziggurat priests standardized price lists. On a clay tablet displayed in the Louvre Museum today, it says, 1 shekel of silver, sir 300 bushels of barley, sir 12 minas of copper, sir 3 minas of wool. This isn't just a price table, It's also a trade constitution, because according to this table, everyone knew what value was. And who set this standard? The ziggurat. Now bring this to today. What do the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank do? They set interest rates. Why? Because interest rates affect the value of money. Ziggurats were doing the same job 4,000 years ago. So far we've talked about economic mechanisms, but the real issue is this: human psychology. Why did a Mesopotamian farmer keep borrowing from the ziggurat every year? Because he had no other choice. He got his seeds from there, his harvest guarantee from there, the gods' favor from there. And every year, the debt chain strengthened once more. Here, I must reveal a truth to you. Debt isn't just an economic tool. It's also a psychological chain, because the indebted person is not free. The future harvest isn't his, it's the temple's. The seeds he'll get next year depend on his goodwill, and this system continues for generations. This is one of David Graeber's most important theses. Debt binds people to long-term obligations and reinforces social hierarchy. Ziggurat priests weren't just accumulating wealth. They were accumulating obedience and prestige. Now ask yourself, do you have credit card debt, mortgage debt, student loans? If so, you're inside a ziggurat system too. Just the temple's name has changed. We call it bank now. Like every empire, the ziggurat system didn't last forever. In 539 BCE, Persian Emperor Cyrus conquered Babylon. The political structure of the ziggurat system collapsed. But surprisingly, the economic system continued. Why? Because the Persians understood how effective the ziggurat's debt system was, and they integrated it into their own administration. Debt records kept being maintained. Temples started serving different gods, but their financial functions persisted. The lesson from this: financial structures are more resilient than political regimes. Then Alexander came. Later, Rome came. Finally, Islam came. And each time the same story repeated. New rulers used the old financial infrastructure. Now let's think. What's the difference between the Federal Reserve Building and the Ziggurat? One is ancient, the other modern. One uses clay tablets, the other digital records. But fundamentally, they both do the same thing. They determine the unit of value, silver, dollar. They create credit, seeds, mortgages. They keep debt records, tablets, digital records. They legitimize authority, gods, state. And here's the real secret. The modern banking system has digitized the ziggurat logic. If you take out a loan today, the money the bank gives you isn't from someone else's deposit. It's a number created on a computer screen, just like how ziggurats lent more than the barley they had. And if you can't pay that loan, your home, your car, your future salary goes to the bank, just like how the ancient farmer's land passed to the temple. Now let me tell you the truth. If a voice inside you is saying this system isn't fair while watching this video, you're right. But the key point is, to change the system, you first need to know how it works. And here we are. At the end of a 15-minute journey, I've shown you this. The history of money begins with the history of debt. And debt isn't just an economic tool, it's a mechanism of social control. This system that started in ziggurats continues today in central banks. Just instead of gods, we have economic stability, and instead of temples, financial institutions. So, what should you do? First, break free from debt psychology. Debt ties you to a place in the future. If you don't use it strategically, it enslaves you. Second, financial literacy isn't a luxury, it's a survival tool. How do banks create money? How does interest work? What causes inflation? Anyone who doesn't know these questions is defenseless against the system. Third and last, history is repetition. If Hammurabi's debt forgiveness resembles the 2008 bailout packages, it's no coincidence. As long as human nature and power dynamics remain the same, economic crises will be resolved in similar ways. If this video added something to you, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because content like this spreads not through algorithms, but through conscious viewers. And tell me in the comments, have you ever realized before that you're part of the debt system? Remember, knowledge is power, but only when you use it. See you in the next video.